It's a risky move. Jumping right in.
It's better when you do.
Oh, there we go. Got the buy off there from the wifey. Additional thoughts. Freddie Gibbs, Madlib, Pinata. Interesting experience. I know you're surprised to hear me say the word interesting. I never use that term. I never say that to explain or describe an experience I've had. A lot of you, I'm sure, noticed that it took me a little while to warm up to the album. And, going through it, I really didn't get into the jams. Really, I think the track, what was it, 4? Yeah, High with Danny Brown. And then it rolled in the Heralds. Heralds was funny because my mind was desperately searching for meaning when he was literally singing about a fucking, chicken shop. But that cracks me up because it just shows, I wonder sometimes if you guys believe what I'm saying in terms of how my mind is and how I focus on lyrics so much. And that's a perfect example of me just fixating on lyrics and searching for meaning when there's clearly nothing there. But my experience with this album with Pinata, and I really gave it a lot of listens because there's some people out there saying this is legit my top #1 all-time favorite album. So I really wanted to understand that, hear that. My experience was very similar to the one I had with Whole Lotta Red. Honestly, pretty similar. Now, I'm not saying that the two albums are similar in nature, but my experience was slowly warming up, enjoying it more. Okay, yeah, I get it. I really like it. Then I went from, okay, why are other people not liking it? What's going on there? And I think really, I want to start with this concept of the Whole Lotta Red album and my experience with that and this, because I can look at the track listings. Heralds, I remember. Shitsville, I really like. Thuggin', Real, Uno, Broken, Shame. I mean, really all of it. The whole thing from top to bottom I enjoy. But when I sit here and look at a lot of these tracks, I don't remember exactly, right away what they sound like. And Whole Lotta Red was the same way too, where it was just, you're just constantly jumping from one to the other to the other. So sometimes it's easy to forget which each track sounds like. I was thinking about Freddie Gibbs and his style, and you can listen to him. And this is going to be mostly directed to the people who are not into Freddie Gibbs, because I've seen a lot of people say that. Well, not a lot, but people say, they're just not into him. He's kind of boring to me, whatever. And I kind of had both experiences where I sort of felt that way initially, even though I could listen to the album and go, he's cracking off his verses very well. A lot of speed, a lot of precision. Maybe lyrically, I don't recall having a lot of experiences where he was putting a lot of complexity into his rhyming scheme, which is fine. But, I think about when I hear Madlib's beats, I of course think about MF Doom and how much I love him. So my mind often went there. And then having listened to Biggie last week, kind of coming from that frame of mind. What I noticed with Freddie, and I think why some people sleep on Freddie, is because he is so fast and he is so precise, he also exists kind of in a monotone band in terms of his voice with his inflections and sound. And I liken that to, when I listen to punk, I'm not really into punk, because usually when I listen to punk, I've not taken the time to seriously listen to it. But when I do hear it, all I hear is just the bass line just going diddle, 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 just super fast bass line. And while I can be impressed by the speed of that, or any speed metal in that regard, after a while I kind of get bored, because it's just, okay, I get it. You guys are going as fast as you can, and that's cool and all, but I like variety. Think too about Eminem's Rap God. When he gets into that really, really high speed section where it's no, he's just going. His voice narrows out and exists within kind of a narrow range of sound. Same thing with Kendrick and Rigor Mortis, because I think as you get into that speed pocket, you lose the ability to put inflections on your voice. And when I think about Freddie, and I go back to Biggie last week, and I think about Gimme Loot, Biggie's got all these, just little nuances in his voice where he kind of hesitates a little bit with his rhymes, and then he's raising his voice, he's lowering his voice, he's a little bit more emphasis here and there. And with Freddie not having that, or not using that, I shouldn't say not having that, not using that, I think it's easy to sit there and listen to him and go, yeah, I get it. He's going fast. Yeah, this is a good verse and good flow, but it's not landing for me. And I think it's just because of that slight lack of variety, those lack of inflections. For me, it didn't really start to click for me until what I was doing is I would get up first thing in the morning when I was still sleepy, and I would just put it on. I would just put it on. Because when it takes me a little while to like wake up, and so I wasn't in like a critical thinking mind state. And when I did that, Freddie's voice just became an instrument that melded in with the beats, and then everything went together, and that's when it really started to click for me. I focus so much on lyrics, and when people are talking, I want to hear what they have to say, that it's hard for me to push voice into a sound region. And I feel like with Pinata and with Freddie and at Madlib, these two joining together, I feel like you have to view both of them as instruments, as making music. And when I do that, I fucking love it. I really do like it quite a bit. I was wondering how I was going to end up today, because I think even on Monday I was like, yeah, I like it, but I was kind of on the fence between liking it and loving it. And now I'm in the love it camp. Like I really do enjoy it. And it is an album where I feel like I can just throw it on and it just goes. Now, another thing I want to point out too with this album specifically, like Whole Lotta Red, well, actually not like Whole Lotta Red, but in Whole Lotta Red, one thing I really enjoyed about that album is how one track would just end and then the next one starts. You never get a moment to pause. It just jumps right into the next one. And that's what gives it that great loop. You know, you can just put it on repeat and it goes and goes and it's fine. With this one, with Madlib putting in his kind of iconic, standard little intros and outros from movies or shows or whatever, it puts these weird little moments of pause between tracks. And I was doing a thing today where as soon as the track was over and it went into one of these little outros or intros, I would skip it. I would skip the end and jump right into the next one. And when I did that, it felt better. Now, that's not to criticize the album for how it's structured, but what I'm trying to do is give those who maybe feel like they're not into this one, maybe you guys can try this concept of listening to it and see if it helps you enjoy it more. Let's see what else. I don't really have a whole, this might be a kind of a boring one, but, oh yeah. Okay. Lyrically, I think Freddie's really good, but as I listened to it more and I was going back through some of these songs, I noticed there's a couple other indications here and there scattered throughout the album where he's talking about how his uncle's hooked on crack. There's a line in Thuggin' how his uncle's girl got him hooked on the glass pipe. And then there's that second, sorry, my throat's all jacked up. I went running tonight and I'm kind of phlegmy, gross, nasty. Not fine. There's that track with his uncle when he calls him up. And that one, with these little breadcrumbs scattered lightly throughout the album about his uncle being hooked on crack, and then him having that voicemail at the almost last track, it really leads me to believe that whole situation eats him up, especially with what his uncle is saying in that voicemail. Basically talking shit to him, saying, you're trash, you motherfucker, you had the money, you didn't help your family, you don't care about us, blah, blah, blah. But I have to try and put myself in Freddie's shoes and think about, okay, if you have somebody who's in your family who's addicted to crack and you give them money, you're not helping them. You're not helping them. You're enabling them. You're giving them, a fast pass to their own grave, more or less. And so taking that idea and pairing it with the idea of a family member who's suffering, and then pairing that with the idea of wanting to help them, but then also knowing that you can't. And then, to me, it makes it fairly, I don't want to say obvious, but very understandable why there's these little hints about this throughout the album where he's talking about his uncle here and there. And it's not very prominent. It's very subtle. Just a couple lines here and there. But I liked that in the sense that, you know, throughout this album, something that was unsettling and kind of surprised me a little bit too, because I thought I'd gotten over this. You know, I remember when I first started listening to albums and trying to process the idea of these guys talking about their thug life and the guns and the drugs and the money and shooting and all this other stuff, and getting over this idea that it's being glamorized and getting used to the idea that they're just telling their stories. Freddie does such a good job of making it seem normal. And when it seems normal, it's kind of fucking terrifying, honestly. There's a couple videos that I watched. Thank you, Alex. Thank you for posting all the videos again. And, you know, he's just hanging out with these dudes or whatever, and they got all their guns, and they're fucking in these apartment complex with bars on the windows. And you're like, it's like, what the fuck, man? And it was unsettling. It was unsettling because it was so normal in that setting, the way it was presented, both in the videos and the way he presents it in these songs. And to me, it makes it more real than the person who, I don't want to say boasts about it, but tries to make it seem like, hey man, you know, I'm a badass, I'm tough, I do all these things. Like, to me, the more the person tries to convince you that they're a badass, the less I believe it. Whereas Freddie doesn't leave me any impression that he's trying to convince me at all. He's just simply saying, this is what I do. And I believe him. You know, and then you get into this whole thing with his dad, how dad was a cop. And some of you left some comments about, I guess his dad did some shit. I don't know. I don't really know all the stories. I didn't look into it super deep. But I was reading some of the comments, and what you guys were saying was really, really, I was going to say heartbreaking, but fuck, man. Like, when your dad's a cop and you're dealing drugs and your dad's possibly corrupt and taking the drugs that he's confiscating and turning around and selling them to make extra money. I don't know if that was actually true or not, but it's just wild. It's really wild. I guess that's really it. That's all I have. I don't have a lot of notes. I was going to do notes about the individual tracks, but once I started experiencing it like a whole lot of Red, it shifted from individual tracks to an album, you know, just song after song after song that feeds into each other. And I really enjoyed it. So I very much enjoyed it. I really want to do Bandana now. I really want to do Alfredo now. I believe Bandana is the one where him and Madlib kind of build the tracks together. From what I understand, Madlib made all these beats and then just kind of gave them to Freddie, and Freddie did his thing on top of them, which that was another thing I wanted to mention. I feel like I can tell that the beats were constructed beforehand and then Freddie took them and melded his way into them. And I don't know how normal that is. And it's not necessarily bad, but I do feel like with Shitsville I think is my favorite track now. I still really like Broken. Uno's got a great beat. Harold's has got a catchy beat too. I mean, so many of these songs have great beats. But when you listen to Shitsville, it's got that dun, 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 just a really fast beat. And Freddie just slides right into it with his verse and his flow. And he does a great job, but I feel like I can tell. And that distracts me sometimes it distracts me just the tiniest bit, because it makes me wonder, I guess it really doesn't distract me. It makes me want to listen to Bandana. It makes me want to hear music that those two guys sat down and did together, because it's probably really good. And some of you have said that you feel like Bandana is better than Pinata. So someday, I don't know when, but there will be a Bandana reaction. I haven't listened to it. I haven't listened to Alfredo, but I would like to do that. Both of those. I like it. I'm a Freddie fan. He's very good. Very good. Enjoyed this album quite a bit. I'm glad I got to it. And Friday is Denzel Curry, Taboo, and Unlocked with Kenny Beats. I'm going to do both of those since I think Taboo is fairly short and Unlocked is only like 17 minutes. So Friday will be a double header reaction. Yay, first one in a while. And I look forward to it. So we'll see you guys then.